He hummed a song, and without knowing it, he proposed to an entire Apache clan. He had always been a quiet man, the kind of person who noticed the small things others often ignored. His life had been simple, filled with routine, but it carried a certain calm that suited him perfectly. He wasn't someone who sought attention or excitement. Instead, he found happiness in ordinary moments: the feel of cool grass under his feet, the smell of rain on the earth, or the sound of birds early in the morning. Life for him was not about grand adventures, though he would occasionally find himself in places most people might never visit. He liked to travel slowly, to walk streets and trails that were less crowded, and to observe the world without interrupting it. His interest in history and culture made him curious about the stories that towns, mountains, and rivers had to tell. He loved to listen to people who had lived their lives differently from him, and he always treated their stories with respect. From a young age, he had loved music. It was not the music that demanded applause or fame, but small, personal tunes that seemed to live in his heart. He could hum for hours without realizing it, especially when his mind wandered. Sometimes he hummed when he was happy, sometimes when he was nervous, and sometimes simply because he liked the sound of the melody moving through him. Music for him was a friend, a way to feel connected to the world. He did not play an instrument, nor did he sing for others. He simply hummed, and the melodies followed him wherever he went. It was a habit that seemed small but would, unknowingly, change his life in ways he could never imagine. At this time, he was traveling through the southwestern part of the country. He loved the open landscapes, the mountains that touched the sky, and the endless stretches of desert that looked alive in the morning light. He had spent weeks driving slowly through the region, stopping at small towns and villages, learning about their people and the history that shaped them. He preferred this kind of journey to crowded cities and tourist attractions. For him, the beauty of travel was in the quiet moments, the conversations with a local who shared an old legend, the smell of fresh bread from a small bakery, or the simple act of sitting quietly by a river and watching the water move. One late afternoon, he found himself on a dusty road that seemed to stretch forever into the hills. The sun was beginning to set, painting the sky in shades of orange, pink, and purple. He felt a sense of peace as he drove slowly, enjoying the way the light changed the colors of the rocks and sand around him. Suddenly, his vehicle made a strange sound. He pulled over, hoping it was something minor. But as he got out and examined it, he realized he couldn't fix it on his own. He sighed, but instead of panic, he felt calm. Problems like this, he thought, were just another part of the adventure. He started walking along the road, hoping to find someone who could help. After a short while, he saw a small community in the distance. A few houses made of wood and stone sat close together, smoke rising gently from chimneys. People were moving about, some tending to small gardens, others carrying water or talking quietly. He walked toward them, careful to greet politely, and soon found himself being welcomed by a few of the community members. They were kind and curious, asking where he had come from and offering help with his vehicle. Their eyes held warmth, and their gestures were gentle. He felt a sudden sense of belonging, even though he had only just arrived. As the sun lowered further, he was invited to stay for a while, not just to fix the vehicle, but to rest and share a meal. The group led him to a simple but clean house, where they offered water and bread. He felt a mixture of gratitude and wonder. He had never been someone who easily asked for help, but he realized that kindness had a way of appearing in unexpected moments. The family explained that their community had lived in this area for generations. They shared stories of their ancestors, of struggles and victories, of the land and the animals, and of ceremonies that had been passed down through countless years. He listened carefully, fascinated by the depth of history and the care with which it had been preserved. After the meal, he felt a little restless, as he often did when alone in a new place. He started humming softly, a tune he had learned long ago from his grandfather. It was a simple melody, nothing complicated, just a song that had comforted him during his childhood. He hummed without thinking, letting the notes rise and fall with the rhythm of his breath. At first, it was private just for himself, but gradually, the soft sound carried through the small house. The people around him paused, listening with quiet attention. They did not interrupt, but their faces changed subtly. There was curiosity, a hint of surprise, and a careful awareness that he could not immediately understand. He noticed their attention and stopped for a moment, feeling slightly embarrassed. But he reassured himself that it was just music, just a melody that had been part of his life. He smiled awkwardly, continuing softly, trying not to intrude on the calm atmosphere. What he did not realize, however, was that the tune he hummed was more than a simple song in this place. Long ago, in the history of this community, this melody had been part of an ancient tradition. It was a tune that, in a different time and context, carried meanings far beyond what a simple listener could guess. It was connected to ceremonies, respect, and even commitment in ways he could never have imagined. As he hummed, the elders exchanged quiet glances, their expressions unreadable to him. The younger members of the community were curious, listening intently but unsure of what it meant. He continued, oblivious to the layers of meaning that surrounded him. He was simply a traveler, a quiet man who loved music, sharing a private habit with people who had never met him before. He did not yet know that the small act of humming would soon place him in a story that would be told again and again, a story that combined history, culture, and a moment of pure, unintentional significance. The sun finally disappeared behind the mountains, leaving a soft twilight. He looked around, realizing how peaceful it was. He had no idea that in this moment he was part of a living tradition that stretched back hundreds of years. His presence, his curiosity, and his simple habit of humming had set the stage for something extraordinary. For now, he felt calm and welcome, unaware of the small ripple he had created in the fabric of a culture that watched and listened with care. That night he slept in the small house, hearing the soft sounds of the community around him, the quiet conversations, the shifting of footsteps, and the occasional call of an animal outside. Music still lingered in his mind, not as a tune that demanded attention but as a quiet companion. He felt connected, not just to the people who had welcomed him, but to the land, the history, and the stories that filled the air. Little did he know, this simple habit of humming would soon take on a meaning that no one, including him, could have predicted. By the next morning, he would step into a world where tradition and intention met in ways he could not yet understand. For now, he was just a quiet man with a traveling soul, a love for music, and a respect for people and places he encountered along the way. And as he hummed again, preparing for the day ahead, the world around him listened, waiting to reveal the remarkable story that was about to unfold. The next morning, the man woke to the gentle light of dawn filtering through the small wooden windows. The air was crisp and carried the scent of earth and smoke from nearby fires. He stretched and stepped outside, feeling the cool ground beneath his feet. Around him, the community was already stirring. Children ran past, laughing, while adults tended to gardens, fetched water, or prepared for the day. Everything moved with a calm rhythm, the kind that comes from generations of experience and a deep connection to the land. He felt a strange sense of peace, like he had stepped into a place where time moved differently, a place where life was measured not by schedules or deadlines, but by the rising and setting of the sun, by the seasons, and by the simple acts of living. After a quiet breakfast, he was invited to walk with one of the elders to see the community more closely. The elder was a tall, dignified man with eyes that seemed to hold the weight of decades. He moved slowly but with purpose, and his voice carried a calm authority. As they walked together, He explained the daily routines, the history of their people, and the importance of certain customs. The traveler listened carefully, asking questions when appropriate, trying to understand without intruding. Every detail mattered to the community, and he realized that even the smallest actions, like how water was carried or how a fire was tended, had meaning beyond what he could immediately see. By midday, a gathering was taking place in a central area of the village. He was invited to join, unsure of what to expect. People had brought food, blankets, and small instruments, and the space had a quiet, respectful energy. He noticed that the elders took their places first, their presence commanding attention without a word. Children sat near their parents, listening intently, and young adults moved carefully, aware of the older generations watching. The traveler felt a mix of curiosity and nervousness. He had never been part of anything like this, and he wanted to be respectful. He tried to keep his movements slow and unobtrusive, aware that in a culture he barely understood, even small gestures could carry significance. As the gathering continued, the elder who had guided him spoke to the group, introducing him as a visitor who had come a long way to learn about their history and way of life. The traveler felt honored, though also slightly embarrassed. He was not used to such attention. He offered a simple nod, keeping his hands at his sides, trying to show humility. The elder smiled kindly, as if understanding his discomfort. Then, after a pause, the elder motioned for him to sit and listen. There was no pressure, but there was a sense that something important was about to unfold. Feeling relaxed but still a bit self-conscious, the traveler hummed softly to himself. It was a habit he could not easily stop, especially when he felt both nervous and contemplative. The melody was the same one he had hummed the night before, a tune that brought him comfort and reminded him of home. At first, the sound was private, just a gentle hum in his chest. But as he continued, the notes floated through the gathering space. People's heads turned slightly, and he noticed their expressions changing. There was a quiet attentiveness in the way they looked at him, a careful observation that he could not yet understand. The elder who had guided him approached and listened closely. The traveler smiled politely and continued humming, thinking it was merely a way to fill the silence. But he sensed a subtle shift in the air. People whispered quietly among themselves, exchanging glances. The traveler did not understand what was happening, but he felt a strange energy, as if the room itself had become more alive. It was not frightening, but it was certainly unusual. He tried to hum more quietly, but the melody seemed to take on a presence of its own, carried by the history and memory of the people around him. The elder finally spoke softly, asking the traveler about the tune he hummed. He explained where he had learned it, how it reminded him of his grandfather, and how it had been a song of comfort throughout his life. The elder nodded thoughtfully, listening carefully to every word. After a pause, he began to explain the history of the melody, though not fully, at least not yet. The traveler realized that the song had a meaning he had never known. It was connected to ceremonies, respect, and intentions that extended beyond a single person. The realization made him feel a mix of awe and nervousness. He had no idea that his simple habit could carry such weight. Soon, more members of the community gathered around, curious about the visitor and the song. They moved carefully, making sure to show respect, but their eyes were filled with quiet excitement. The traveler felt overwhelmed, but he tried to remain calm. He smiled politely, answered questions about his life and travels, and explained that he had no idea about the deeper significance of the melody. His honesty seemed to matter greatly to the people around him. The elders spoke to one another quietly, exchanging looks that told the traveler this moment was unusual, even remarkable. The sun climbed higher in the sky, and the day grew warmer. Despite the unfamiliar circumstances, the traveler began to feel more comfortable. He observed the community at work and play, seeing how each person contributed in small but meaningful ways. Children learned by watching, elders guided with patience, and everyone respected one another's space. There was a harmony in their movements, a rhythm that was unlike anything he had ever experienced. The music in his mind blended with the natural sounds around him, the wind through the trees, the soft murmur of water, the occasional bird call. It all seemed connected, like pieces of a larger story he had only just begun to understand. As afternoon approached, the elder invited him to participate in a small activity that was part of a traditional routine. The traveler was eager to help, though he moved carefully, aware of his status as a guest. He followed instructions, learning quickly but also respecting the pace of the community. People offered guidance with patience, and he felt a sense of inclusion that was both surprising and comforting. Even though he was an outsider, his willingness to observe, listen, and participate had earned him a place, however temporary, in the circle of life around him. The community shared stories as the day passed, stories of ancestors, of struggles and triumphs, of the land and the spirits they believed inhabited it. The traveler listened with fascination, realizing how deeply their past was connected to their present. Each story carried lessons, values, and warnings. Some were serious, some lighthearted, but all held meaning. The man reflected on his own life, realizing how little he had known about the depth of tradition and the power of small actions. He hummed quietly again, not knowing that the familiar tune he carried was weaving itself into the memory of the people around him. As the sun began to set, the atmosphere in the community shifted again. The gentle hum of life was joined by a quiet attentiveness. People gathered, preparing for an evening meal, and the traveler noticed that the elders were exchanging knowing glances. He wondered what he had done wrong or right, unsure of what was about to happen. The elder who had guided him approached, smiling, and gestured for him to sit. There was no tension, only a quiet sense of anticipation, as if the moment held meaning beyond the ordinary. He realized then that his simple humming, something so personal and natural, had touched something deep within the community. The tune was not just a melody. It was a thread that connected him, unknowingly, to traditions and memories carried across generations. He felt a mixture of humility, awe, and nervousness. He had come seeking understanding and had found it in ways he never could have imagined. Music, a private habit, had become a bridge between him and a people whose history was both beautiful and profound. As darkness approached, he understood that this was only the beginning. The day had been filled with lessons, surprises, and moments of connection. He had seen the power of listening, of observation, and of respect. He had learned that even the smallest acts, like humming a simple melody, could have significance far beyond what he intended. He felt gratitude for the kindness of the community, for their patience, and for the opportunity to learn in such an immersive and meaningful way. He prepared to rest that night, reflecting on the day's events. The melody still lingered in his mind, no longer just a personal tune but a symbol of connection, humility, and respect. He realized that life often surprises us, that lessons can come in quiet, unexpected moments, and that understanding another culture requires not only attention, but also an open heart. As he drifted to sleep, he knew that tomorrow would bring more discoveries, more learning, and more moments where the ordinary could become extraordinary. By the time the first stars appeared in the night sky, he felt a deep sense of belonging. Not in the sense of ownership or possession, but in the quiet understanding that he had been welcomed, seen, and accepted in a way that few travelers ever experienced. And as he hummed softly to himself before sleep, he had no idea that the melody, which had always been just a part of his life, was about to create a story that would remain in his memory, and in the memory of the community, forever. The following morning, the traveler woke to the sound of soft footsteps outside his small room. He could hear children laughing and the gentle murmur of adults talking as they went about their daily tasks. The air was crisp, carrying the faint scent of earth and wood smoke. Stepping outside, he felt the warmth of the sun on his face and the quiet energy of a community that seemed to live in harmony with the land. Everything moved at a natural rhythm, as if time itself respected the cycles of life around them. He took a deep breath, feeling grateful for the welcome he had received and curious about what the day might bring. After breakfast, the elder who had guided him before approached. He spoke in a calm, measured tone, inviting the traveler to join a small circle of community members for a discussion. The traveler was slightly nervous. He had already learned that even small actions in this place could carry deep significance, and he wanted to be careful. As he joined the circle, he noticed that the people were watching him closely but without judgment. Their attention was steady and quiet, as though they were waiting to see not just his words, but the intention behind them. As they spoke, the elder asked him to share more about himself, where he came from, what his life had been like, and why he was traveling. The traveler spoke humbly, explaining that he was curious about the world and loved to learn from people and places that had history and meaning. He told them about his childhood, about the songs his grandfather had taught him, and about how humming had always been a way to express feelings he couldn't put into words. As he spoke, the community listened intently, nodding occasionally, their expressions a mixture of curiosity and recognition. They seemed to understand that this was more than a casual story. It was a glimpse into his character and his respect for life. At some point, he began to hum softly again, almost unconsciously. The melody had always comforted him, and now it seemed to fit perfectly in the quiet circle. At first, he thought it was merely a habit, something to fill silence while he spoke. But he soon noticed subtle changes in the community's demeanor. Elders exchanged glances, young people looked with wide eyes, and even the children seemed to pause. The air felt charged, as if the notes carried meaning beyond what he could immediately understand. He stopped for a moment, realizing that his humming had captured their attention in a way words could not. The elder spoke gently, asking if he knew the significance of the melody he was humming. The traveler shook his head, admitting honestly that he did not. He explained that it was a song from his childhood, learned from his grandfather, and had always been a private comfort. The elder nodded, listening carefully, and then began to explain the history behind the tune. It was a melody that in the past had been associated with ceremonies of respect and courtship. Traditionally, singing or humming it could indicate a promise or an expression of commitment, depending on the context. The traveler's eyes widened in surprise. He had no idea that his small, habitual tune could carry such weight. As the day progressed, the community began to respond to him differently. They treated him with a mix of respect, curiosity, and gentle amusement. Some approached him to ask about the tune, others observed quietly, as if trying to understand his intention. The traveler felt a mixture of nervousness and wonder. He had never been part of anything so culturally layered. Every action, every sound, and every gesture seemed to matter in ways he had never considered before. And now, he realized that the simple act of humming, which had always been a personal comfort, had created ripples across the traditions of a people he had only just met. At midday, a small gathering was called in the center of the community. People brought food and water, laid out blankets, and sat in a circle. The traveler was invited to join, unsure of what was expected of him. He tried to remain humble and quiet, sitting on the edge and observing. The elder who had been guiding him stood nearby, his presence calm and reassuring. He explained to the group that the traveler had arrived unexpectedly and had shared a melody that was both beautiful and significant. The community listened, some whispering among themselves, while the traveler felt a deep sense of anticipation mixed with anxiety. Then the moment arrived. A young woman, a member of the community, approached him. She spoke softly, asking about the song he had hummed. The traveler explained again that it was from his childhood and had no particular meaning beyond comfort. But the elder intervened gently, clarifying that, in the tradition of the community, the song was historically used to signal respect and even a form of proposal. The traveler froze, unable to believe what he was hearing. His eyes widened and his heart raced. He had not intended anything like this. What had started as a simple habit had now become something that could be interpreted as a significant gesture. The community reacted in different ways. Some laughed softly, understanding the humor and the innocence of the situation. Others looked more seriously, aware of the historical weight of the melody. The traveler felt a mix of embarrassment and awe. He had never considered that a simple song could communicate such a profound message. The elder explained that intention mattered, but action could not be ignored. The traveler listened carefully, nodding and expressing deep humility. He apologized repeatedly, explaining that he had no idea of the cultural significance and that he meant no offense. Despite the misunderstanding, the elder smiled and reassured him. He explained that mistakes were part of learning and that the traveler's honesty and respect were what truly mattered. The community's response was guided by wisdom, not anger. They understood that he had acted out of habit, not intention. Slowly, the atmosphere shifted from tension to warmth. The people began to share stories, laughter, and conversation. They included him in their daily activities, showing him that while the tune had caused an unexpected situation, it had also opened the door to deeper connection and understanding. Throughout the afternoon, the traveler learned more about the traditions of the community. He observed ceremonies, listened to stories of ancestors, and participated in simple tasks with careful guidance. He realized that every act, no matter how small, carried meaning. Even the way he moved, the way he spoke, and the way he hummed could impact those around him. It was a lesson in mindfulness, respect, and the power of culture. By the end of the day, he felt more connected to the community than he had expected. He understood that learning went beyond facts and history. It was about presence, intention, and understanding the subtle language of traditions. As the sun began to set, casting golden light over the mountains, the community gathered again. This time the atmosphere was relaxed but attentive. People smiled and laughed softly, sharing food and stories. The traveler felt a deep sense of gratitude. He had arrived as a stranger, humming a simple tune, and had unintentionally become part of a tradition much larger than himself. He realized that this experience would stay with him forever, a reminder of how small actions can carry meaning beyond imagination. That evening he sat quietly, reflecting on the day. He hummed softly, not realizing that the melody had now become part of the shared memory of the community. He understood that he had entered a world rich with history, values, and deep connections. Every glance, every gesture, and every note of music carried significance, teaching him lessons he could never have learned elsewhere. He felt humility and awe, knowing that his life had intersected with something ancient and profound. As night fell, stars appeared in the clear sky, twinkling above the mountains. The traveler felt a sense of wonder and respect. He had learned that communication is more than words. It includes gestures, traditions, and symbols that carry meaning across generations. A simple melody, hummed without thought, had connected him to a people, their history, and their values. It was a lesson in cultural understanding, human connection, and the power of unintended actions. Finally, as he prepared to sleep, he realized that the day had changed him. He had gone from being a quiet traveler, curious but unaware, to someone who had experienced the depth and beauty of a living culture. He understood that he must continue with humility, always mindful of the power of his actions. And as he hummed one last time before closing his eyes, he felt that the melody was no longer just a personal comfort. It had become a bridge between worlds, a reminder that life often teaches in ways we cannot predict, and that understanding comes through listening, observing, and respecting the traditions of others. The following morning, the traveler awoke with a mix of curiosity and anxiety. The events of the previous days played repeatedly in his mind, especially the moment when he realized that his humming had unintentionally carried meaning far beyond what he had intended. He had never considered that a simple melody could convey respect or even suggest a form of commitment. The realization weighed on him, yet he also felt grateful. Grateful that the community had responded with patience and understanding, and grateful for the opportunity to learn lessons that could not be found in books or stories. After breakfast, the elder approached him with a calm smile. "Today," the elder said softly, "we will continue to share and perhaps clarify some things, but first, it is important that you understand how actions carry meaning here." The traveler nodded, listening carefully. He had already begun to notice that every movement, every word, and every sound was observed and interpreted with care. In his own culture, a song was often just a song, but here it could be a message, a gesture of respect, or even a promise. He realized that understanding this subtlety required not only attention, but also humility. The day began with a small lesson in traditional practices. The traveler observed the community performing a series of activities that had been passed down for generations. People worked together in a quiet harmony, each action purposeful and meaningful. As he participated, he felt both nervous and honored. He wanted to show respect and understanding, yet he worried that he might inadvertently do something wrong. The elder guided him patiently, explaining each step and its significance. With each instruction, he became more aware of the intricate balance between intention and perception in the community's way of life. By mid-morning, the topic of the melody came up again. The elder asked the traveler to hum it once more, carefully and slowly, so that the community could explain its traditional significance. He hesitated at first, unsure of whether this was appropriate, but he trusted the elder and began to hum softly. This time he hummed with full awareness, realizing that his tune was no longer a simple habit. As the notes floated through the air, the community listened intently. He noticed the slight nods of approval, the careful glances between elders, and the quiet murmurs of recognition. The song, though the same as before, had taken on new meaning. The elder spoke gently to the group, explaining that the melody had been used historically in moments of commitment and proposal. The traveler's eyes widened, a mix of embarrassment and awe washing over him. He had never intended such a gesture. He had hummed simply out of habit, as he often did when he was thoughtful or reflective. Now, he realized that actions, even unintentional ones, could ripple through traditions and be understood in ways he could not have predicted. His heart raced as he looked around at the community, feeling a mixture of nervousness, humility, and deep respect. The community responded with a surprising combination of calm and humor. Some smiled, understanding the innocence behind his actions, while others maintained a more serious demeanor, acknowledging the historical weight of the melody. The traveler felt a sense of relief, though he remained deeply aware of the gravity of the situation. He apologized sincerely, explaining again that he had no knowledge of the song's significance and had not intended any disrespect. The elders listened quietly, nodding in acknowledgement, and the young members of the community looked on with curiosity, sensing the importance of this learning moment. As the day progressed, the elder invited him to participate in a dialogue about tradition, intention, and respect. They discussed the ways in which actions, gestures, and even simple habits could carry deep meaning. The traveler realized that understanding culture required more than observation. It required awareness, empathy, and a willingness to learn. He began to ask questions about other customs, about the ways in which songs, stories, and ceremonies had shaped the community over generations. Each answer deepened his respect and understanding, and he felt a growing connection to the people around him. By afternoon, the tension that had lingered in the air began to dissolve. The traveler had learned that his unintentional proposal, though serious in tradition, was not a cause for anger or punishment. The elders emphasized that honesty, humility, and respect were more important than the mistake itself. They shared stories of past misunderstandings, showing him that even the most careful actions could sometimes be misinterpreted, but that integrity and intention always mattered. The traveler felt a sense of relief, but also a renewed sense of responsibility. He understood that he had entered a delicate space where history and tradition guided every interaction. The community invited him to join in an afternoon ceremony. It was simple, yet full of significance. People moved with intention, spoke with respect, and observed each other with care. The traveler followed instructions closely, aware of the symbolic weight behind every movement. He felt honored to be included, but also cautious, wanting to ensure that his participation showed respect rather than misunderstanding. As he moved through the ceremony, he noticed the subtle ways in which actions communicated meaning, the way a hand was extended, the manner of a bow, the gaze of an elder. Each detail mattered, and he absorbed it all with humility. At one point, the elder spoke to the group, emphasizing the importance of understanding intention behind actions. "What he has done," the elder said, referring to the traveler, "was not intended as a proposal, yet it reminds us that every action carries weight. What matters is that he learns, that he observes, and that he honors our ways. This is the lesson we share with him." The traveler felt a wave of gratitude. He realized that the community had not only accepted his mistake, but had also used it as a teaching moment for both him and the younger members. The power of understanding, patience, and forgiveness became clearer than ever. As evening approached, the traveler sat with the elder, reflecting on the events of the day. He felt a deep sense of awe. A simple habit, humming a melody, had connected him to generations of history and tradition. It had sparked misunderstanding, but it had also created a bridge of respect and learning. He realized that life often teaches lessons through unplanned moments, and that true understanding requires humility, awareness, and the willingness to listen. The elder smiled at him, acknowledging his thoughtfulness and sincerity. The community gathered once more for the evening meal, and the atmosphere was warm and relaxed. Laughter and conversation filled the space, and the traveler felt a sense of belonging, even as a temporary guest. People shared stories, and the elders told him more about the history of the melody, explaining how it had been passed down through generations. The traveler listened intently, feeling the depth of meaning in every word. He understood that what he had initially seen as a simple habit was, in fact, a thread connecting him to a culture rich in history, respect, and tradition. As night fell, the traveler took a quiet walk outside. The stars shone brightly in the clear sky, reflecting off the mountains and desert around him. He hummed softly, mindful this time of the potential meaning his melody might carry. Yet he also felt a sense of peace. The community had taught him that mistakes could be transformed into understanding, that intention mattered more than action, and that respect could bridge worlds. He realized that he had grown, not just in knowledge, but in empathy, patience, and humility. Finally, as he prepared for sleep, he thought about the days ahead. He understood that his journey was no longer just about travel or curiosity. It was about learning, connection, and the responsibility that comes with understanding another culture. He knew that his actions would continue to carry meaning, intentionally or unintentionally, and that he must move forward with awareness and care. Yet he also felt hope and gratitude. The community had welcomed him, guided him, and shared their history and values. He felt honored to be a part of their story, even for a short time. That night, as he drifted to sleep, he hummed once more. The melody had transformed from a private comfort into a symbol of connection, humility, and respect. He had entered a world rich with tradition and meaning, made a mistake, learned from it, and gained wisdom. He understood that life often surprises us, teaching lessons in quiet, unexpected ways. And he knew that this experience, his accidental proposal, the community's response, and the lessons learned, would remain with him forever, shaping the way he viewed the world, people, and the subtle power of actions and intentions. The next morning, the traveler woke to a world bathed in golden light. The sun rose slowly over the mountains, casting long shadows across the village and illuminating the small, quiet streets. The air was crisp and fresh, carrying the scent of earth, smoke, and the faint aroma of food being prepared by the community. As he stepped outside, he felt the calm rhythm of life around him. People were already at work, moving with care, speaking softly, and tending to the land as if every action mattered. He paused for a moment, taking it all in, and reflected on how much he had learned in such a short time. In the days that had passed, he had come to understand that even the smallest action could carry profound meaning. A song hummed without thought could be interpreted as a gesture of commitment. A simple greeting could be seen as a sign of respect or humility. The traveler realized that life was often more intricate than he had imagined. Understanding a culture required attention, patience, and the willingness to learn beyond words. Every detail mattered, and every moment held the possibility of connection or misunderstanding. He felt a deep sense of gratitude for the patience and wisdom of the community, who had guided him without judgment and had shown him the importance of intention. That morning, the elder invited him to join a circle of community members to share thoughts about the past days. The traveler felt both nervous and honored. He had already learned lessons he had never anticipated, and now he wanted to express his respect and appreciation. As he joined the circle, he noticed the gentle smiles of the elders, the curious eyes of the younger members, and the quiet presence of children nearby. Everyone seemed to be waiting, not just to hear his words, but to see his intention and sincerity. He took a deep breath and began to speak. He explained how the melody he had hummed had always been a private comfort, a song from his childhood that reminded him of family and home. He admitted his ignorance about its significance and expressed sincere apologies for any unintended disrespect. As he spoke, he felt a mixture of vulnerability and humility. He had never been in a situation where a simple action could carry so much weight. Yet he also felt a growing sense of connection. The community listened quietly, their attention steady and respectful, giving him the space to express himself fully. After he finished speaking, the elder smiled warmly. He reassured the traveler that while his humming had been interpreted as a gesture of commitment, the community valued honesty and intention above all. Mistakes were part of learning, and respect was more important than perfection. The traveler felt a wave of relief. He realized that he had been welcomed not just as a visitor, but as a learner, someone willing to observe, listen, and understand. The elder's words reinforced the lessons he had been learning since his arrival, that cultural understanding required humility, patience, and an open heart. Throughout the morning, the traveler engaged in conversations with the members of the community. He asked about their traditions, their stories, and their history. He listened carefully, absorbing each lesson and reflecting on its meaning. The community shared anecdotes about past generations, explaining how songs, gestures, and ceremonies had shaped their lives for centuries. Each story was filled with wisdom and insight, teaching him that culture was not just a set of rules, but a living, breathing connection between people, their history, and their environment. He felt increasingly aware of the responsibility that came with understanding and participating in another culture. By midday, the atmosphere had shifted from tension and curiosity to warmth and camaraderie. The traveler participated in daily tasks alongside the community, helping with gardening, preparing food, and observing traditional practices. Each action he took was mindful, guided by the understanding that every gesture carried meaning. He noticed how small acts of care, watering plants gently, arranging food with thoughtfulness, or simply listening attentively, were recognized and valued. Through these experiences, he realized that respect was not always expressed through grand actions, but often through quiet, thoughtful behavior. As afternoon arrived, the elder invited him to a quiet space outside the village. They walked together along a small trail, the soft sound of wind through the trees accompanying their conversation. The elder spoke about the importance of learning through experience rather than instruction alone. "You have already learned much," he said gently, "but the world is full of lessons. Actions, even unintentional, carry meaning. Respect, honesty, and humility will guide you in all things. Remember that what may seem small to you can be very important to others." The traveler nodded, absorbing each word. He felt a profound sense of gratitude and a growing awareness of the depth of the wisdom he had encountered. In the late afternoon, the community gathered for a small ceremony, a peaceful event filled with tradition and meaning. The traveler was invited to observe closely and participate as appropriate. He moved carefully, following instructions and showing respect in every gesture. The ceremony was quiet but powerful, a reminder that life was shaped by patterns, rituals, and shared understanding. He realized that every note of music, every word spoken, and every action could communicate something far beyond its immediate appearance. The melody he had hummed days ago had been a catalyst, connecting him to the community in ways he could never have anticipated. As the sun began to set, casting warm orange and pink hues across the mountains, the traveler reflected on the lessons he had learned. He understood that life often teaches through unexpected moments, that understanding requires presence and observation, and that respect is demonstrated through both words and actions. The community had shown him patience, guidance, and acceptance, turning what could have been an embarrassing mistake into a profound learning experience. He realized that the world was full of subtle lessons, waiting for those willing to notice and listen. Evening arrived and the village settled into a peaceful rhythm. Families gathered for meals, children played quietly, and elders shared stories and wisdom. The traveler sat quietly, reflecting on the journey he had undertaken. He thought about how a simple habit, humming a tune, had brought him into a deep, meaningful connection with people he had just met. He felt a mixture of humility, awe, and gratitude. Life, he realized, had a way of teaching lessons through moments that seemed ordinary at first, yet carried extraordinary meaning. That night, before going to sleep, the traveler hummed softly once again. The melody no longer felt like a private comfort, but had become a symbol of connection, understanding, and respect. He thought about the elders, the children, and the entire community that had welcomed him, guided him, and taught him in ways he could never have learned alone. He understood that his life had been enriched not by grand adventures or material gains, but by the depth of human connection and the lessons carried through tradition and culture. As he lay down to rest, he felt a sense of completion. The experience had transformed him. He had entered as a quiet, curious traveler, and left as someone who had gained profound insight into the power of intention, the meaning of actions, and the value of cultural understanding. He knew that the lessons he had learned would stay with him forever, shaping the way he viewed the world and the way he interacted with people. The melody he hummed had connected him to a living tradition, leaving a mark that would not fade with time. Before sleep claimed him, he thought about the journey ahead. He would continue traveling, but he would carry the wisdom of the community with him. Every action, every word, and every gesture would be weighed with care, guided by respect, honesty, and humility. He understood that life offered opportunities to learn at every turn, often in ways that were subtle, unexpected, and deeply meaningful. The accidental proposal he had made through his humming had taught him lessons he could never have anticipated, and he was grateful for the experience. As the stars appeared in the clear night sky, he hummed one last time. The melody floated softly through the air, a symbol of the connection he had formed, the respect he had gained, and the lessons he had learned. He realized that understanding another culture was not about mastery, but about presence, observation, and genuine care. Through this experience, he had discovered that life's most meaningful lessons often arrive quietly, through small actions, unexpected moments, and the generosity of those willing to teach with patience and wisdom. The night deepened, and the traveler finally closed his eyes, feeling content and at peace. He had been part of something larger than himself, a story that combined history, tradition, and the unintentional power of a simple song. He knew that his life had been forever changed, that he would carry the lessons and memories of this community with him wherever he went. And as sleep embraced him, he dreamed not just of melodies, but of connection, understanding, and the quiet, enduring power of respect and humanity.